On this edition for Sunday, February 27th, the world watches the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And cognitive neuroscientist Daniel Levitin learns music from the masters.
She went with me syllable by syllable and taught me to get out of my own way.
Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, Bernard and Denise Schwartz, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, the Anderson Family Fund, the estate of Worthington Mayo Smith, Leonard and Norma Chlorfine, the Rosalind P. Walter Foundation, Koo and Patricia Ewan, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg. We try to live in the moment, to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular has been offering no-contract wireless plans designed to help people do more of what they like. Our U.S.-based customer service team can help find a plan that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Additional support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Russian tanks, troops, and weapons were on the move across Ukraine for a fourth day as the invasion continued. Over the course of a fast-moving day of developments, more nations added new sanctions. Russia's president put nuclear forces on alert, and plans for possible peace talks emerged. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky said he agreed to talks with a Russian delegation, quote, without preconditions at the Ukrainian-Belarusian border.
I'll say frankly, like always, I don't believe in the result of this meeting, but let's try so that no citizen of Ukraine would have any doubt that I, as president, did not try to stop the war when there was even a small chance.
In Ukraine's second largest city, the Interior Ministry released video of Russian troops advancing and burned military vehicles. Ukrainians kept control of their capital, Kyiv, where a curfew was in force. Civilians joined military troops defending the city as more countries agreed to ship weapons to Ukraine. And for the very first time in its history, the European Union said it will now pay for and deliver weapons to a country under attack.
European Union steps up once more its support for Ukraine and the sanctions against the aggressor that is Putin's Russia. For the first time ever, the European Union will finance the purchase and delivery of weapons and other equipment to a country that is under attack. This is a watershed moment.
Also today, the EU announced a ban on all Russian-owned and registered aircraft from its airspace and a ban on broadcasts from the Russian state-owned media outlets Russia Today and Sputnik. Late yesterday, the U.S., the EU, the United Kingdom, and Canada issued a joint statement banning some of Russia's banks from the SWIFT international banking system, the most severe economic sanctions so far. In reaction to that, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered his nuclear forces to go on high alert this morning.
The top officials of leading NATO countries allow themselves to make aggressive statements with regards to our country. That is why I order the defense ministers and chief of the general staff to put Russian army deterrence forces on high combat alert.
U.S. officials called Putin's statements part of a pattern.
This is really a pattern that we've seen from President Putin through the course of this conflict, which is manufacturing threats that don't exist in order to justify further aggression. And the global community and the American people should look at it through that prism.
In Russia, anti-war protesters chanted "No to war" at demonstrations today. According to OVD Info, a rights group tracking the protests, police detained more than 1,400 people protesting in more than 40 cities across Russia. On Ukraine's borders, neighboring countries continue to admit thousands of refugees. The United Nations said more than 368,000 people have now fled Ukraine. Yaroslav Trofimov is the chief foreign affairs correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. He is in Kyiv. I spoke to him late this afternoon. Yaroslav, what have you been seeing in Kyiv this past 24 hours?
Well, it's most of what we've been hearing. We've been hearing a lot of airstrikes and the thought of artillery on the horizon. And we've really been seeing empty streets because Kiev has been under a curfew all day since Saturday night and until Monday morning. And the curfew is necessary, the authorities here say, because of Russian infiltrators. So there have been Russian sleeper cells and Russian agents and saboteurs, as the government puts it. They've been trying to take over buildings in the Ukrainian capital, have been engaging in firefights. And so the government says they need this time to hunt them down. And so during the night, we've heard for 2 nights in a row, shooting in the streets of Kiev, exchanges of gunfire. During the day, it's been quiet, and tonight it's also been quiet. So it looks like the Ukrainians are finally, getting control of every corner of the city, while at the same time battles are raging on the outskirts of the city, and those are real battles. Using artillery, aviation, the drones that Turkey had supplied to Ukraine, and we've seen evidence of Ukraine stopping this offensive, of destroying several Russian columns of armor and pushing back the Russian forces from the immediate vicinity of Kiev.
Are people sticking to the curfew? Are they out trying to get whatever they need for the next couple of days? I mean, you seem to be in a place that has electricity, has an internet connection.
Right. So electricity is uninterrupted in the city. Mobile phones work. There is internet. There is food in the stores. People were not supposed to go out today on Sunday, but yesterday we went to the big supermarket. It was still well stocked, from before the war, I suppose. ATMs still work and have cash. I was able to pay, for my groceries with Apple Pay. So in some ways, it's very normal, but in other ways, it's an empty city. It used to be just 4 days ago, a modern, bustling European capital with, nightclubs and restaurants, and all of that has ended now.
Are most people staying above ground at night? Are they trying to go in bomb shelters, subway stations, basements?
I think most people have left. Most people with small children, most people with the elderly parents have boarded buses and cars and trains and fled to the west of Ukraine, which is much safer than Kiev, that is not being attacked by Russia as often, and where the threat of Russian soldiers showing up on your doorstep is much lower in the immediate future. So I would say, sort of, a ballpark estimation is about a third of the residents of Kiev have stayed behind. But that third is mostly young people who want to fight. And so we have seen, thousands and thousands of mostly young men, but also women, joining the new territorial defense forces, and those are people of all walks of life, all joining the resistance against the Russians. And the Ukrainian government just said today that in addition to the 200,000 regular troops that they have, 100,000 people signed up for the military in the last 48 hours.
Are the people in Kyiv tonight aware of how the world perceives what's happening?
I think they are aware, but they also see it as a bit of too little too late, because they are now receiving military help. Lots of countries such as Germany that opposed sending weapons to Ukraine, that opposed sanctioning Russia, have now changed tack. But the way many Ukrainians see it, if they had been much sterner in the past, if they had allowed Ukraine to have air defenses, which Western nations refused to sell to it last year, then there wouldn't be these bombings, and Russia would have this freedom to inflict damage on one of Europe's oldest cities.
Yaroslav Trofimov of the Wall Street Journal joining us from Kyiv tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
For more on the Ukraine invasion and Russian reaction, I spoke earlier this morning with Anton Troianovsky, Moscow bureau chief for the New York Times. Anton, first, how aware are the Russian people of what is happening in Ukraine?
So those who watch television and rely on television for their news, which is about half the country, according to polls, what they know about this war is that it's not a war, it's a quote unquote special military operation that is focused on the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine. There is pretty much nothing in the news about battles in these other cities where fighting has been going on. this weekend. But the internet does remain more or less freely accessible in Russia. And so on social media, on independent Russian language media outlets, people see really the full extent of what's going on.
Are people feeling the effects? One of the big things that the Biden administration said is that, listen, these economic sanctions aren't going to be painful overnight, but the government and the people there will feel them.
Yeah, they're feeling them already. I think it looks like they're really going to feel them tomorrow on Monday, because these sanctions that were announced Friday by the European Union and the United States against Russia's largest bank, also Russia's central bank, that has the potential to really throw markets into turmoil. And today we've already seen really long lines at ATMs. People really have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow.
If you were a Russian living in Moscow right now, do you think that life is pretty normal?
Yeah, I think it's pretty normal. You know, the bars and restaurants are still full. But the fluctuation of the ruble, the currency in Russia, is a really big deal. Obviously, so many things are imported: phones, TVs, wine, you name it. And so the prices on that are going to be going up drastically. Russians have become used, in the middle class in Moscow, especially, to be able to take inexpensive trips abroad. And that's going to become much harder, if not impossible now. So yeah, I think for now, it's still, you can kind of feel some normalcy, but I do have the feeling that will really change in the next few days.
Over the past couple of days, we also saw people in Russia in multiple cities trying to protest what was happening in Ukraine. We also saw them being arrested. Is there discussion in the public sphere, so to speak, about standing up to this?
Yeah, there's absolutely discussion. I mean, you mentioned social media being slowed down. They have slowed down access to Facebook and Twitter, but it still more or less works. Instagram, which is kind of one of the main social networks here, continues to work. And there's a ton of discussion on there, a lot of people voicing discontent, and it really feels like not that many people are voicing approval. Obviously, it is very risky to actually protest. So the fact that we're seeing thousands of people in the streets, and we saw that again today on Sunday in Moscow, there were 800 arrests, but people still came out.
And this might be in the weeds for the average Russian, but when the president declares that he's sort of escalated his strategic defense posture and includes, his nuclear forces, what goes through the public there?
If you watch Russian state television and you watch their news programs, they talk about the Russian nuclear arsenal quite a lot. They say things like, we are the only country in the world that can reduce the United States to radioactive ash. That's a direct quote from recently. So I think in a way Russians are used to this. They, especially the kind of more hawkish, conservative Russian, sees the country's nuclear arsenal as kind of the thing that should give Russia a rightful superpower status. And I think people are going to be increasingly afraid. The question is just, what does that fear then translate to? Does it translate to people holding back and really just sort of sitting at home in their kitchens, as they say people did in the Soviet Union, or do you start seeing some more active movement to try to change something?
We're hearing that there might be some preliminary agreement on peace talks between the Ukrainians and the Russians. What's the appetite there for this to be over?
Well, I mean, again, in Russia, a lot of people don't realize there's a major land invasion happening, carried out by their country, and many others do know what's happening and are horrified by it. I mean, until Thursday, I think basically no one in Russia could actually imagine a war with Ukraine, an all-out war with Ukraine. It's just totally incredible to people. These were two parts of the Soviet Union. Just 30 years ago, so many Russians have friends and relatives in Ukraine and vice versa. People want peace talks. The only issue is that Putin has laid out such maximalist demands, what he refers to as the demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, that it's hard to imagine. I mean, he's made it quite clear he wants to topple Zelensky's government and install a new government. So it's unfortunately hard to see these talks getting anywhere, but fingers crossed.
Anton Troianovsky, Moscow bureau chief of the New York Times. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
For more on Russia's invasion of Ukraine and additional national and international news, visit pbs.org/newshour. 2 years ago, we brought you the story of a best-selling book called Successful Aging, and its scientist author who had plenty of tips on the best ways to grow older, including learning and doing new things. Now, he's putting his own advice into practice with a little help from some noteworthy friends. NewsHour Weekend special correspondent Mike Saray has the story.
Neuroscientist Daniel Levitin wrote the best-selling This Is Your Brain on Music, and is best known for studying the effects of music on the brain, including those of prominent musicians like Sting.
I guess you've never had a brain scan before.
No, I haven't.
It's going to raise up and go back in the machine.
We asked him to compose music in the scanner. And I saw a bunch of activity in the visual cortex, back of the brain, visual. He said, oh, well, I think of composition as architecture. I'm building a structure musically.
A musician and studio engineer himself, he's also helped produce several gold albums for the likes of Steely Dan. But since his college rock band days with his group, The Mortals, Daniel Levitin, now 65, has wanted to write and sing albums of his own.
I didn't do it in my mid-20s because everybody in the music business told me not to, that this was not my calling. Well, coming up into 60, I thought, as a neuroscientist, I knew that what the science of aging had to say. And that is that as you head towards 60, you're going to grow complacent and set in your ways, and you're not going to want to try new things.
Any thoughts he might have had about his scientific research, possibly giving him a leg up on the songwriting process, were quickly dashed once he started on an album of his own.
There's the science of music in the brain, and there's performing and writing and producing, and those are probably not going to meet.
It's greed, it's not money. Country star and two-time Grammy-winning songwriter Rodney Crowell was one of the first professionals to critique his work in progress over several years.
No one can teach you how to write songs. Sometimes I think don't give up your day job is the proper encouragement. But in the case of Dan, I thought, no, I'm going to give him some real input on this because he's a pro. Find the truth in the song and learn to recognize when you're not being truthful.
It's like I'm sitting at a bus stop waiting for a train.
And that can manifest in trying to force a couplet or a soft rhyme into a couplet that doesn't ring true.
Taking Rodney Crowell's advice, I realized that maybe the reason nobody liked my songs before was because I was writing them for someone else and they didn't connect deeply with me.
Joni Mitchell was another friend and music advisor.
I had become friends with Joni in the 90s, and for a while there, we were getting together at her house once a month for dinner, and she would play me whatever song she was working on. And at one point, I said, "Tell me, what do you think of these songs?" She said, "Sing me a line." So I sing her a line. She says, "See, you're messing your vowels up. You don't speak your vowels that way, and you're doing the soft R." She went with me syllable by syllable and basically taught me to get out of my own way, to stop trying so hard to sound like someone else or to be a singer.
After 7 years of reworking songs he had written, the moment of truth came at this New York recording session for his new album, Sex and Math, accompanied by veteran studio musicians.
You may like fast music, but you're slow in your years.
They're all very personal, and I never stopped writing songs. I've been doing that since I was a teenager. But what took me so long is that I guess I just wasn't ready. And I was afraid of being judged and being in the spotlight.
What took you so long? Baby, it's cold outside.
And I realize it's cold to live in the shadows of your dreams and your ambitions. That is a very cold place.
Daniel Levitin, a neuroscientist, author, lecturer, musician, songwriter, singer. Will the real Daniel Levitin please stand up?
You may like fast cars, but you're slow changing gears.
What do you hope other brains will be like on the music of Daniel Levitin?
If anybody listens, first I hope that they'll like it, meaning that they'll have some emotional experience that
And if they don't, if it's not a success, commercial success, or success by any other standard, is it still a success for you? The fact that you did it?
It's very much a success for me if it doesn't sell any copies at all.
What took you so long? Baby, it's cold outside.
NewsHour will have on-the-ground reporting from Ukraine tomorrow and complete coverage of President Joe Biden's State of the Union address on Tuesday. That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. For the latest news updates, visit pbs.org/newshour. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and have a good night.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Sue and Edgar Wackenheim III, Bernard and Denise Schwartz, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, the Anderson Family Fund, the estate of Worthington Mayo Smith, Leonard and Norma Chlorfine, the Rosalind P. Walter Foundation, Koo and Patricia Ewan, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities. Barbara Hope Zuckerberg. We try to live in the moment, to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments. Additional support has been provided by Consumer Cellular, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.